you tell us about your character in the movie The Darkness?
Yeah. I play Bronny, who's the mother, like the mama bear in the little kind of Brady Bunch scenario. And she has to face her sort of internal demons as this kind of intense energy comes into the house, and she's sure that it's got something to do with the presence in the space, but she can't convince her husband. And in the meantime, her family is kind of imploding, and she's trying to kind of contain their energy and protect them. And it just sort of turns out that she has to face all of her own darkness in order to kind of move forward with them as a family.
All right, and now all the characters, the roles are very deep and very intense, but how did you prepare for yours?
Well, I spent a bit of time online, and I was sort of researching this girl who was schizophrenic, a young girl, and her parents had put her on a bunch of talk shows, I guess in this sort of loneliness and isolation with the issue. And so it was just fascinating seeing them love their daughter, but they were also kind of afraid with her. And that I thought was a great key to the story. I mean, having David's character be mildly autistic and maybe slightly schizophrenic, but, you know, in actuality he is really communicating with another dimension. And that the effect of that and the ripple effect in the family is an interesting sort of entry point to what the story is about.
Right, and now speaking of other dimensions, I did read where at some point Greg had an actual psychic on the set. Is that correct?
That is correct, and someone reminded me, I'd forgotten actually, that this psychic told me that there was a ghost following me around on set, and I was like, that's great, I'm so glad you're here to remind me, or to tell me this story. But that was his job actually, and he had spent a lot of time in various different houses around Hollywood, a lot of famous people's houses, dealing with sort of paranormal activity. So he would tell us what color our auras were, and he had this kind of sensitivity and insight into a world that we weren't too connected with. Mm-hmm. And had the annoying quality of telling us that we were being followed by ghosts, which is not something you necessarily want to hear. But apparently she was quite a friendly ghost, and she was the inhabitant of the house before the house was built that we were shooting the film in.
Wow. And so throughout this huge role and all this wonderful otherworldly stuff going on, do you see any of yourself in Bonnie, in your role?
I mean, I think as an actor, you're always bringing yourself physically to the part, so you're you. But no, not really. I'm not too connected to her. I mean, I think she's dealing with a lot of frustration in relation to being stuck in a way in her domestic situation, and I think she's sort of struggling to kind of find her sense of identity in there, other than as the kind of housekeeper in a way, and the supporter of her husband. It's sort of a cliched kind of a role, and it was kind of fun to pull it apart a bit. And like, if you look at the dark side of what is the mother in the Brady Bunch, mm-hmm. If you look at her nightmares, I think you'd be looking at Bronny. So I wasn't too connected to Bronny. I think the sort of intense stuff was the more interesting stuff to play, like her with her alcoholic problem, and the creepy scenes with the kid, and then the fighting with her daughter. All of that stuff is interesting. But not something that I'm too familiar with. But it's certainly the fun part of the role.
All right. So what jumped out at you for this role? What really kind of drew you into it?
I think the fact that we were opening it up and pulling it apart. And it was more the story, I think, that was attractive to me, and the opportunity to work with Greg again. And also the opportunity to be one of those people that has worked with Kevin Bacon and is no longer X degrees away. So I can sort of tick that off my career box. But the surprises, the surprises of the shoot were working with the kid and his amazing talent and his access to the role that I think a lot of adult actors would struggle to have, that kind of authenticity. And also meeting Lucy, who's like an amazing actress, also from Australia. So those were the sort of surprises, and I think there was a wonderful chemistry between all of us in constructing this temporary family. And it was a lot of fun. It was very, it was kind of like a Halloween party every day on shoot. Like Greg has this quality of, he's got kind of a light, buoyant character, and obviously he's got a dark side if you look at his work. But his sets are always a lot of fun, and the dark spaces that you go into, you spend a lot of time laughing as well.
Awesome. Well, I mean, that's absolutely the hallmark of a great director. And what other projects have you worked on with him?
We made a movie called Rogue, and that was a movie that he wrote and directed about a life-size, like huge crocodile that eats people. So in that movie, he had me like munched on. But he has a real instinct for casting. Like in that movie, he had Mia Wasikowska before anybody knew who she was, and Sam Worthington again before anybody knew who he was. It was an Australian film. Mm-hmm. So he's just a really interesting guy. Again, like really great actors to work with. And has, I think, he's really into the genre, obviously, but he's also got a really intuitive sense of character.
Oh, excuse me. So with everything that you have going on now, what are some of your future projects that you're working on?
Well, the next film is a movie about a surfing story, like a chick kind of surfing story. And then the film after that will be the next piece by the guy, Stephen Elliott, who directed Scylla, Queen of the Desert. Kind of excited as the film's also going to star Kylie Minogue and Guy Pearce, who are both really interesting personalities. And the script is quite outrageous, so I think that will be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Can't wait to see it. Well,